Welcome back to Delicious and Nutritious, where we use the healthiest ingredients to cook the tastiest in food. And today, one of my favorites. I literally don't really go too many days without eating this, and it is going to be sweet potatoes. Sweet potatoes, I absolutely love them, and one of my favorite ways to make sweet potatoes is going to be sweet potato fries. So, contrary to the traditional potato that is cooked in something like a fast food restaurant where it is fried in oil, deep fried, and although maybe you have come accustomed to that type of flavor, texture, and other things like that, unfortunately, those foods are not very healthy for you. They use oils that are rancidified. Rancidified oils are inflammatory and are definitely linked to heart diseases and other diseases, number one. Number two, they're usually using GMO and obviously non-organic potatoes. So putting that food into a deep fryer with chemicals in inflammatory food is like the perfect symbiotic relationship of chemicals that is definitely going to make you unhealthy. So today what we're gonna use is sweet potatoes. If you haven't done sweet potatoes, you guys are gonna get excited about this. So we're gonna have two different types of sweet potatoes today, actually, depending on which one you like, and you guys can play around with it. We have the traditional sweet potato slash yam that is going to be the orange color, and then we're also gonna use a Hannah sweet potato that is going to be a white sweet potato. That's gonna be one of my favorite ones, and then also you can use purple sweet potatoes as well, which all can be bought, from what I've seen, usually at Whole Foods, and they all do come organic, which is definitely a major plus for all of us trying to stay as healthy as possible. So let's jump right in. So the amount of things that you actually need for this is relatively simple. So we need an oven. You can also do it in an air fryer. If you guys do want to cook in an air fryer, here's gonna be my recipe for you. What I do, I chop the exact same of what we're gonna do here in a second. In the air fryer, what I do, thank you to Lizzie and Kelvin for this air fryer. I've literally almost used it every day since they did give it to me. It's an absolutely amazing thing. It is big and bulky and clunky. Let me show you. So you definitely have to have the space for it, but if you do have the space for it, I store it away in a cabinet and I bring it out when I use it, which is almost every single day or every other day. I just make a bulk amount of sweet potato fries or sweet potatoes, however I'm gonna use them. Maybe I'll dice them up, and then I go ahead and store it away. But honestly, I absolutely love this air fryer. It cooks so efficiently. It heats food up really fast. It's similar to like a toaster oven, but in the air fryer form. I absolutely love it. So as far as the air fryer, maybe we'll make another recipe to cover that, but what I do is I put it in 370 degrees after I cut up my sweet potatoes. No oil at first, as we will do in this recipe. I cook it for a grand total of 12 minutes. Then what I do is I bring them out. I put coconut oil in a pan. I bring them out. I put them in a bowl. I then put some coconut oil. I toss them around to get them relatively covered in refined coconut oil. Remember, that's very key. Tossing them around, then I go ahead and put them back on the racks. Now I'm gonna drop the temperature to about 310 degrees, and I'm gonna cook them for 15 to 16 minutes. And I do monitor them a little bit because sometimes, depending on the thickness of them, there's nothing wrong with popping up your fryer and making sure they're not getting too crispy or burnt. But doing that is great, and then when I bring them out, then I season them afterwards. I put the salt on and everything like that and toss them in with that coconut oil that was already in the bowl, and it makes an amazing sweet potato fry. But today, we're gonna do it in the oven because all of you guys may not have that. So the oven preset 380 degrees up front, okay? So now we have to look at the sweet potatoes. So we have the Hannah sweet potato, which is large, and we did not have big regular sweet potatoes, so we have small ones. So we're gonna check out the Hannah sweet potatoes today. And I just wanna make sure that you guys are aware. There are like potato cutters and everything like that. If you guys do have one, great. I haven't found one that really works incredibly well for me. So I cut them by hand, and when I'm looking at these Hannah sweet potatoes, they're quite large. So that is going to factor in to the recipe. So the other things that we're gonna need, a knife, cutting board. I suggest you guys have parchment paper. The parchment paper that I use is If You Care. Great company, sustainable. They're not cutting down forests to make their product, which is very important to me. It's recycled. Then there's a couple additions that we're gonna make. Staples are going to be refined coconut oil, very important. As always, Himalayan or gray sea salt, very important. And then there's gonna be a couple add-ons that you can do as well. So we have garlic powder, granules. I like the granules, which would go together with the parsley. So parsley on regular sweet potatoes is super tasty. You can also do it on Hannah as well, but the garlic, salt, and parsley combination extremely good. Obviously, you're not gonna mix garlic and cinnamon, but if you wanna have a little bit more of a sweet, kind of desserty sweet potato, you can do a little bit of sea salt and a little bit of cinnamon. It's definitely gonna be a little bit different of a recipe, which we will cover in a different video of a super easy way to make treats from sweet potatoes. It's great. All right, so we have our sweet potato. And then last but not least, you need a baking dish, which we are obviously going to put this into the baking dish to try to remove it from sticking. Sticking sweet potatoes to the baking dish is gonna be one of the hardest things in cooking here. So we're gonna start cutting right up one large Hannah potato. The goal here is to cut this potato to be able to have very, very similarly cut pieces. We do not want to have like a couple pieces that are large and a couple pieces that are not large. Sweet potatoes are one of the ones that are a little bit challenging to cut. I'm using a Santoku knife. There you go. And then I'm gonna cut the whole thing about as even as I can eye it to be. And then what I do is I go ahead and split it, flip it, put it up against the knife edge like that. And then we are going to cut straight down right there. I can then repress. Straight down right there. And then if I have any outliers right there that need another cut, and there is going to be our sweet potato fries just like that. You definitely are going to want to try the Hannah sweet potatoes. I think they're really tasty. I actually prefer them over regular sweet potatoes, but it's going to be personal preference here. So then you can just go through and maybe I miss one like this that seems a little bit bigger. I don't want them to, have one random sweet potato. I'd rather have a couple that are overcooked, a little bit crispier, than undercooked and then be a little starchy. And last but not least, the last round. And we don't need a tremendous amount up front. What I would suggest doing is using multiple pans. You can do that, multiple pans, because then you can cook multiple things at the same time. If you have enough space for it in your oven. There we go. All right, so there is a total of all of them. I'm gonna search through real quick. This one seems a little bit large. There we go, take that out. All of them about are the same right there. So that's gonna be a little bit over half the sweet potato. And we need to put the parchment paper into the glass dish. And I've seen from this If You Care brand, maybe I'm doing it wrong, which I'm absolutely willing to admit that because that's definitely a potential, but it's a little bit challenging to rip it on the box. So that's why you see me bust out the scissors. So now what we are gonna do here is we're gonna put all the sweet potatoes in. The goal is to have them relatively spaced out and not have them over the top too much, right? There's a little bit of room for that, but we wanna make sure that they all cook. They are gonna shrink down, so just keep that in mind. And this is why I suggest having two pans, because look, we didn't even get half of the sweet potato and there we are like that. So these sweet potatoes are gonna go into the oven, 380 degrees for approximately 40 minutes. The goal and what you want it to look like is you want it to look like it's slightly starting to dry out. The reason being is because then we're gonna coat it in the coconut oil, and as they are drying out, coating it with the coconut oil kind of condenses them and makes them a little bit more like fries. Because if you start putting coconut oil on them now, what I've seen is it kind of starts to make them a little goopy, and we're trying to avoid that. So we're trying to shrink the sweet potato to kind of get it that nice outside slight crustiness, just right before it dries out, and then we put the oil on and then we rehydrate it and then it comes out amazing. So into the oven, 40 minutes, 380 degrees. Keep an eye on your oven because all ovens cook separately. You do not want them to start burning. And here we have it, sweet potato fries. Look at the shrink on those, right? You see what I'm talking about. They're just starting to dry up. The crazy thing is if you don't put oil on them, they're just gonna start dehydrating. They're gonna keep on dehydrating, which is not really what we're after. We're after making sweet potato fries. So here you go. Look at the difference in size of those, right? So what we are going to do is get them into the bowl, and we need to then coat them with coconut oil and shake them up a little bit. So be careful while doing this. There you go. A little coconut oil in there. I put about teaspoon and a half. Remember, the goal is not really to drench them, it's just to coat them. And then we're going to shake them up. You can move it around with your hand if you'd like. Because you want all the fries to be coated with coconut oil. And be careful, the fries are definitely hot, right? You want to give them a second, like I did before we brought them over, so that you do not go straight from the oven into here and then your hands are burning. Alrighty, and then right back in there. So now notice, they have a little glisten to them, and you're gonna see when we bring them back out, they're gonna crisp up a little bit. They are a little bit less traditional. I mean, they're fries, don't get me wrong, but when we're not deep frying things, the game is totally different. Like, it's totally different. So we don't have that much longer to cook on these. You can always tell a sweet potato cookedness is if you press into it. So if it's starting to get squishy, like when you bake a sweet potato, I don't know how you guys tell if your sweet potatoes are done, because even if I follow a recipe, sometimes they're not done in the amount of time that they say. I press into the top. If I can get a nice finger press into the top of the sweet potatoes, signifies it's done to me. And usually when I try it, it does sync up to that. So being that I'm compressed into these sweet potatoes is a good sign that these guys are already getting towards the more done arena. So now we're putting them back into the oven, and we will be right back to finish them off. And the sweet potato fries, look at this. It cooks down from all those fries into this right here. So let me show you this real quick. So this particular one right here is going to be one that was way too small, right? So this is the one thing you have to monitor. One thing that you could do, obviously you want the temperature and the time, right? So we did 380 degrees. We did it for a grand total of, this is 23 minutes. So you see they're a little bit more hard, right? I kind of like my sweet potato fries a little bit more crispy and hard. If you don't want them this crispy and hard, what you can do, turn down the temperature just a little bit to 370, and you can cook them for about 15 to 20 minutes. Like I said, everybody's oven's gonna differ a little bit, but you have to kind of get down your oven. Then you want to take them out and let them chill for a second before you bring them over here. This is going to be what it looks like when you have differentiating fry sizes here and here. You guys can see that they burn down. So what you could do is on the first time you take it out, and you do see the ones that are already pre-cooked, you can just pick those out and don't put them in for a second round, which is what would have worked effectively for these particular ones. So now that we have these, we are going to want to transfer them into here. Now that we have the fries in here, what we are going to look to is adding some salt. So do you guys want to make these salty fries, or do you want to give them a little bit more flavor? If you're going to go with the parsley and the garlic granules, what I would suggest you guys do, cook them a little bit less. Then I would throw a pan on, I'd put coconut oil in there. I would put the fries in there until the pan gets hot. Once the pan's hot, then I would throw in the parsley as well as the garlic and the salt, and I would coat them until the parsley gets a little bit of saturation in it and it starts turning into more of like a non-dried spice. So we're not gonna do that today. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna throw in a little bit of sea salt. This is to taste, guys. Alrighty, and there you have it, the sweet potato fry. Love it, amazing, slightly crunchy. I love these Hannah sweet potatoes. They're absolutely great. And so if you want it a little bit less chippy slash hard fry, just cook it a little bit less. I prefer mine a little bit crunchier. I like the consistency of it, and it's super good. Additionally, the Hannah sweet potato gets a little bit more of like a chestnut flavor. So if you're going for a little bit different than a traditional sweet potato, the Hannah is gonna be something you wanna try out. I suggest trying it out anyway. The traditional sweet potato is a little bit more sweet, like typically what you're used to. I just want to say thank you guys for tuning in, for cooking another delicious and nutritious meal with us. I can't wait to cook more delicious and nutritious food so we can keep changing the world one bite at a time. I'm going to see you guys out on the next recipe. Enjoy.